myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you.
Hi and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and great result again yesterday, so I think we'll just completely avoid talking about yesterday's game and talk about anything but that. Good evening to Kendall, good evening to Alicia, good evening to Sav, and good evening to Holly. And yeah, it is my birthday. Thank you for all the kind messages, wishes. I've tried to respond to everybody on social media. I can see already we're getting quite a few in the chat as well, wishing us all the best. So thank you very much. And the girls have already wished us all the best. So great. Thank you. And thanks for all the kind words as well from people, emails, etc. about last week's content and the fact that we managed to, push the boat out, get a lot of the ex-players on. You all enjoyed that. We will do it again in the summer. We will get a lot of the lads on. We've got a few ideas, what we can do in the summer. And I've still got a few who want to come on. So you might see another few ex-legends on over the next couple of weeks who fancy coming on. But thank you for all your feedback. It's much appreciated. We do the shows for you. So thank you for all of that. Look, I wasn't going to start with Chelsea, but let's get it out the way. Because there will be people wanting to talk about it. So, Kendall, in a nutshell, yesterday we didn't expect Newcastle United really to come away with 3 points from Stamford Bridge. It's not a happy hunting ground. We didn't get 3 points. Positive, although it annoys us when Steve Bruce gets a positive out of those kind of games. We didn't get thumped, Kendall, which, it looked at one stage 2-0 down. We could have gone 4-5s yesterday. We didn't. That's important for the goal difference if there's a positive.
Yeah, I guess you've got to take as many positives as you can. Honestly, it was worlds away from like the past couple of games that we've played. And I thought, we've had a bit more of a break than a couple of Chelsea as well. Like we've had a bit more of a break than a couple of other teams. Obviously, we don't have FA Cup games. And yesterday, we didn't get out of the starting blocks at all. Yesterday, it was horrible to watch again. It was like literally, I was like, oh my God, have I gone back in time a month where we've playing Aston Villa again? And I'm literally feeling like I just cannot even watch it. Like it was so bad. Chelsea didn't even get out of their first gear yesterday. They didn't need to. They didn't need to do much yesterday to get past us at all. I'm not going to single out certain players, but certain individuals weren't good enough. They're not good enough in my opinion. And, at the moment we've got an injury crisis, so we're probably going to see those individuals for the foreseeable future, which doesn't really bode well. Probably everyone in the comments will probably know which individuals I'm on about because they obviously clearly watched the game as well as I did. So, it was just... As I said on my own Twitter yesterday, I said, we didn't expect to get anything from that game, but the feelings of watching that game went far beyond that particular fixture because it was like taking you back to, 4 games ago where we were awful and against Aston Villa and 5 games ago against Aston Villa when the players looked, depressed. They looked awful. Their heads were down and people were just giving up on watching it. It was just awful. Then obviously we picked up again, playing the 4-3-3, kept it to 4-3-3, which fair enough, I do understand, don't change your formation, that's kind of working. But they had a back 3, which just meant obviously, back 5, however you want to look at it with wing backs, which just meant we were outstretched completely all over the pitch. We just could not even gather or be compact at all to defend well. It was just awful. And as soon as Giroud came on, it was the one thing I didn't want to happen. When I saw Abraham was injured, I was like, right, that's it. I said game over straight away there. He always loves a goal against us. And I just knew as soon as he came on, that was just it, to be honest. A couple of their players had really good games. Kovacic was brilliant for them yesterday, which is a player that I wouldn't necessarily is one of their best. So he had a really good game yesterday. Can't believe we let Werner score, which, it's typical. The commentators always do this thing at the beginning of Newcastle games where they're like, so-and-so hasn't scored in 17 games and blah, blah, blah. They did it again when John Stones scored for Man City. And he's like, he's never scored a Premier League goal in his career. There you go. Bang on. What did he do? So they said it again yesterday. Werner, here he was, had a goal. So, yeah, not really much positive to take from it, especially with the weekend's results as well on top of that. So, Not good viewing yesterday.
I think I saw that stat. I think I called it on the match day live yesterday, and it was Chelsea. I think in 130 Premier League games, once they'd gone 2-0 up, had won 127 of them and drawn 3. So as soon as that second goal went in, that was it, you know. But I said the same as well when Giroud came on. You know, if there was a substitution that was never going to work in our favour, it was him coming on, because he just loves a goal against Newcastle. And you're quite right as well. Timo Werner, if he was going to break his duck, like everybody else who struggles to score goals, Newcastle roll into town, you can guarantee that they're going to get the goal that they need. But okay, Alicia, I presume you were doing your own match day live on your channel, were you?
Yeah, a very frustrating one yet again this week. But the fact that they started Kepa and Werner and still come away with a 2-0 win just baffles me. I seen Kepa on the team sheet and I was like, okay, we might actually score a goal. And I seen Werner was up top and I was like, okay, right, we might be able to deal with this. But as always, the players that never score and the players that are never very good, always when Newcastle turn up, do very well. It's not the result that's so concerning, because it is Chelsea. We knew we weren't really going to get something. It's the manner in which we played. There seemed to be no leadership this week. I don't know what was going on at the back. Nobody seemed to know what they were doing. We didn't really get forward that much, which I was really surprised. Playing Allen and Miggy, and Dwight Gill's got some pace on him, but every time we got forward, it was like it was just one of them. Nobody went up together, or we just didn't look fussed in the slightest this week.
Yeah, no, you're right, 100%. It was desperate, really. That second half display. We didn't concede any more goals, but I just don't see where the goals are coming from, Alicia.
I don't. I've always said the pairing that needs to be made with Gale, you need to go back to the Championship and pair him with Murphy. It's the classic combination. If we're struggling, you know, in terms of defence, I'm not naming names, but the defenders that are out there aren't on the wing backs aren't good enough. Play Murphy, give him a chance again, because he always seems to come in, have a good game, and then he never sees a light of day. I don't know if he doesn't train well or what, but if you want Dwight Gale to score goals, you need to get him back with Murphy. I think it's the only chance of getting him forward.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed that Steve Bruce listens to some kind of common sense, or Graham Jones maybe listens to that, you know, with his iPad, which was getting a bashing yesterday. I've got to say happy birthday to Stephen Chow, who is one of our regular viewers, shares the same date as me. London Boxing History, another Twitter account that I follow, good friend. Not sure he watches the show, but again, somebody who shares the same date. So happy birthday to you, and congratulations to Munch in the chat there. We'll see. He became a granddad last night, and had the COVID vaccine as well, so a double reason for celebration for you, Munch. Congratulations, mate. Sav, Chelsea 2-0 defeat, disappointing, but you know, I think it was just what we expected.
Oh yeah, completely. And also, you can tell Katie's not here. Everyone's being polite and saying, I'm not mentioning names. I'm going to do Katie's bit for her. I'm not going to swear though. I will mention names. Emil Kraft. We might as well have just been a man down last night at the back there. He was awful. When I saw, obviously, Hendrick was suspended, when I saw that he wasn't starting, I mean, Shelby was still there. I thought, actually, you know, our midfield could be better without him. It wasn't. I think that we played sluggish in the first half, and we were, like Kendall said, we had reverted back to how we were playing before. I actually got bored. I ended up just looking at my phone for most of it. It's horrible to watch. And when we did get the ball, it was like they were panicking and just firing it in any direction and just giving it away all the time. There's no actual time to concentrate and look up and make a pass sometimes. And that's really frustrating to watch, because what are they doing in training all week? We'd had 9 days from our last match to prepare for that. And yeah, it was Chelsea. And, you know, you generally think if we got a win, it'd be a lucky one. But we still had all that time to prepare in the lead up to that, and I felt that we did improve in the second half, but nowhere near where we looked like we were going to score particularly. We didn't look a threat against Chelsea at all at any point in that match, and it's disappointing to watch. Well, Jamal Lewis, I feel sorry for him, because I know a lot of people pick him out as he's weak defensively. But if you watched him, the past few games when we've played more forward, he actually plays a lot better with that style. So why we were reverting back, like regressing after we made that improvement, was actually really disappointing to see. And unfortunately, I just think that we turned up like we'd already lost by the time that first whistle went. We didn't even bother really trying.
No, we didn't. Holly, what was your take on the game yesterday?
It was massively disappointing, to say the least. Like, I don't know if anyone else watched their last game against Sheffield United, but I watched it and I thought they were so poor, especially at the back. And I was like so confident going into the game. I thought, oh, well, like get a point and then hopefully manage to nick 3. Didn't happen like that. But I knew that obviously without Wilson it would be like a big problem. And then obviously bringing Gale in, who's nowhere near as good as Wilson. But I still thought we had a chance. And then in the game, I thought we went in the second half lucky to only be 2-0 down, because it could have easily been 3, 4, even 5. And then obviously we did pick up a little bit in the second half and do slightly better, but it still wasn't good enough. And I think obviously what made it worse was the fact that like Fulham's starting to pick up points now in the relegation zone. It's just we're creeping closer and closer towards it now. And we do need to start panicking a bit, because I think, like a lot of Newcastle fans, I was a bit too confident and thinking, oh, there's a 10-point gap, we'll be fine. We'll pick up a few more points and we don't need to worry about it. But now they've got a few easy games coming up, and if they like pick up points from them games, then we're in massive trouble. And yet again, just the morale of the team, like the lack of confidence and everything, it just massively seemed like a huge problem for them. And I'm just worried that they won't get that confidence back in time, and they won't have the fight to stay up. And like we said, like if we're bringing a new manager to save us, it needs to be now. But while we have got that gap, because once we slip into that bottom 3, it'll be just more hard to get out of it. But like, are we too far gone? Because the morale of the team's just so low. I think it would take a long time to build that back up. So I just hope that the players can find it within themselves to do it for the fans.
Yeah, okay. John Askew's asking, is Lewis good enough? I mean, he's come in, he's had time to settle in, Kendall. We're not dealing with somebody who hasn't played in the Premier League. You know, he had a season there, albeit in a struggling Norwich team. But is he struggling to hit the ground running? You know, with his first season with Newcastle, do you think?
Yes, I do. I'm not saying by any means that he's not a relatively decent player, because I think we have seen, sparks of it. I think the game against Everton, I want to say, had a really, really, really good game against Everton. And obviously West Ham beginning of the season, his first game, he was really, really good. And I was like, oh, get in, like we've signed a really decent player here. And it's been up and about. But as Sav obviously touched on earlier, us reverting to a defensive style of football where we sit back, it does not suit him. I've said in the past, I think he is probably more of a wing back than a flat left back. So if we're going to play in a back 4, that's fair enough. But defensively, he is just not the answer, because his defensive awareness is quite poor. Whether or not that's him, whether or not that's a system, whether or not that's a coach, and I'm not entirely sure. But he has looked a lot better till the Chelsea game. He did look better. It's unfortunate because when he kind of has no support around him, if St. Maximin's having an off day, Jamal Lewis kind of struggles as well if they're on the same side. It just depends. I do think there's a player there. He is only still young. Is he 20, 22, 23? So he is still young, and I just think he needs to play in a system where he's got support, because his defensive awareness isn't great. I personally probably wouldn't have played a back 4 yesterday, even though I hate a back 5. But just with the way Chelsea set up, obviously they have their back 3. With the way they set up, I probably would have gone to a back 5 yesterday. Back 3 and 2 wing backs, if you will. But we didn't, and we kept with the back 4. I understand why. But yeah, I just think he needs that support if we're going to play defensive football like that. And unfortunately, he doesn't have it. So I do think there's a player there. I just think he's really, really struggling, unfortunately.
This is a good one from Adam Telford, actually. Playing a diamond will always leave us open out wide. I feel sorry for Willock coming here, playing with Shelvey in midfield. I mean, you know my views, Kendall, on Shelvey. I'm not a Shelvey fan. I think he's a waste of space. He doesn't deserve his place in that team just because he plays one good World Cup ball every 10, or gets a wonderful free kick every 10 games. I think he's a waste. And I think it's no coincidence that players who play in midfield with him, if they just end up struggling because they're doing the job of two men. I felt sorry for Willock yesterday, after such a great debut. He ended up getting subbed yesterday. I just couldn't believe it. I was left scratching my head at that.
If anyone, he wouldn't have been the sub I made. To be honest, I wouldn't. The subs that were made, I was a bit like, what? Because obviously Joe Linton came on for Gale, which I was like, why? Not entirely sure why that happened. And then after the whole debacle of, I haven't ever had that opportunity to play Alan and Ryan together. But then 2 weeks later said, I think they could really make the difference to the team. And then took St. Maximin off for Fraser. I was like, what? Stop making stuff up. Just literally stop making things up. It's so stupid. But going back to Willock, I did feel sorry for him. And as you say, I mean, Shelvey's got no defensive capabilities whatsoever. He's got barely any at this point. So if Willock's going to be that box-to-box midfielder, if you will, that direct centre mid, there's absolutely no point in playing next to Shelvey because Shelvey doesn't offer cover where Willock would have to drive forward. Shelvey doesn't offer that defensive cover. That's why you kind of need. Obviously, Hayden was playing yesterday, but I feel like when I said I wasn't going to call individual players out, I am. When I feel like when Lascelles is in the team, our defence is actually weaker, which is strange because he's the captain. You want that leadership. You need him there to organise the backline. I personally feel that when he's playing in the defence, we are weaker defensively. I know he had to play because we are in an injury crisis currently, especially with centre-backs at the moment. Shah's not going to be back for the foreseeable. So, that is a big, big worry. Lascelles, towards the end of the game yesterday, looked injured to me yesterday again. So whether or not he was fully fit, I really don't know. It wouldn't be a surprise because we know in the past Steve Bruce has had, that thing where he plays injured players because they're all right and then they end up getting a knock and they're out further. I do feel sorry for Willock. I really, really do because as you say, his debut, he looked on point. He looked exactly what we needed. He was direct. Obviously, he scored. He couldn't have asked for a better debut, really. He just looked like everything we needed. And yesterday, he was nowhere to be found. And I don't think that's him to blame at all. I mean, half the players weren't anywhere to be found yesterday. But he will not improve in that midfield if he's playing alongside Shelvey, in my opinion, because as I say, Shelvey will not garner that talent and will not bring the best out in Willock because Shelvey doesn't even bring the best out in himself. He'll have one really relatively decent game every 8-9 games where he'll play some decent passes. Otherwise, he just plays long balls all the time. What is the actual point in that? If I've said this before, if you're not playing a Carroll type player, and you just keep on passing balls through, we don't have any aerial threat up front because, St. Maximin's not really a header of a ball. Almiron's not a header of a ball. Fair enough, Wilson scored a header the other week, but that's not the usual type. So if you're just going to look long balls up all the time, same with Darlow, does exactly the same. It's like we can't do the basics correctly. And the past couple of games we have been. So I don't know why yesterday was any different because it shouldn't have been. We should have still been able to do the basics despite being outplayed by Chelsea, but it wasn't even like that. We just went straight back to the same thing. But I feel sorry for Willock as well. I do agree. I do really feel sorry for him now.
Yeah, me too. In other news, Paul Gibson's been to Fratelli's in Whitley Bay. He said the chips were outstanding, £2.50, and he didn't bother with a can of pop. And he says it's amazing the change in weather. Plenty of spring sunshine. Hopefully back to normal for everybody soon.
That's the content we want, Paul. We don't want to talk
great
about
stuff,
Newcastle.
mate. Well, I did say we weren't going to talk about Chelsea. Looks like we're going to have half the show talking about it. Alicia, just the Lewis situation, really, which is what John Askew was asking about. But you can't just ask about Lewis because, like Sav said, there were so many bad performances, and I think I've seen a couple of people on Twitter comment about it, especially. How can we go from the performance against Southampton to then a performance like that against Chelsea? Now, is it as simple as that, we've lost those three players, key players, it turns out, through injury? and we just haven't been able to adapt. The players coming in haven't been able to adapt to the formation, or we've tried to put square pegs in round holes. What do you think it is?
I just think the whole defensive system just doesn't work. I feel there's a player in Lewis, if he was under the right manager, and if he was played in his best place of kind of as a winger, as what Kendall was saying, not as kind of a flat left back. If he was let to kind of run on with it, but he's not. And I don't think he's built up the awareness in the Premier League of knowing you're probably going to have a player in front of you and one behind you. I noticed that a lot yesterday. There was players always behind him cutting in, and he was miles off it. He was in the middle somewhere. And I think it's going to take time for him to build that. At the end of the day, he was in a failed Norwich team. I think that's what a lot of people forget. Norwich were absolutely awful the year they went down. Mm-hmm. So we can't put too much pressure on him to be as good as we expect him to be.
So do we bring Dummett back in? Because John Askew, who started the conversation, is a Dummett fan. He thinks Dummett should be back in. Are you a Dummett fan? Would you put him back in?
I am and I'm not. Sometimes he can have a decent game. I feel he's a bit Shelby-esque. 1 in like 10, he can have a really good game. And then the rest of the time, it's kind of like he's not getting there, or he's too slow, or he's not picking out the same things. Kind of in a Lewis way, he's not picking out the same runs. But I feel like that's also down to the communication in the defence at the minute. I feel like there isn't any. And I don't want to sound harsh, but I think this is a time where Darlow needs to be swapped for Dubravka to get that communication back. Dubravka is kind of a way like a captain. He commands his defence. He tells people where they need to be. He's screaming at them if they're in the wrong place. And I think that's what they need. I think they need the kick off somebody like Dubravka to be like, here, sort yourself out. We're in the situation we're in. We can do better than this. Like, I just think that's what we need. We need somebody to come in and command the defence. And it's frustrating that Lascelles isn't doing that anymore. At the end of the day, the last time we went down, when it was, the whole situation where players were jumping ship, he was the one that stood up for this team. And I'm not seeing that this time. I'm not seeing the captain stand up and go, look, we're being crap. We need to pull ourselves together like he did then. And he hasn't really come out and said anything when he used to be really vocal. And I just feel like we need a bit more of that and a bit more commanding really in the team.
Yeah, and Norman's saying we should be getting behind the team. I mean, it's difficult, Norman. Obviously with COVID, we can't. We can't go to the games. The players, if they've got any sense, don't really read the social media comments because it's full of negativity. It's difficult to be positive because what you've had, Norman, really is you've had your voice taken away by COVID. We can't go to the games. We can't vent our spleen. We can't voice our opinion. We can't sing. We can't boo. We can't do what you would normally do at a football match. And that's the big problem. So, listen, I get what you're saying, too much negativity. But unfortunately, when you come off the back of a defeat, it's very difficult, unless your name's Steve Bruce, to be positive. And Steve Bruce finds a positive, I'm afraid, in every defeat, which, is what really gets on fans' wicks. I've got to be honest. Sav, formation, Dummett. Alicia's made the point about Dubravka coming back in. It's not going to score your goals bringing Dubravka back in.
No, but then I do kind of get where Alicia's coming from because he has got a commanding voice, and I think. Everyone jumped on me a little bit yesterday when I said about Matt Ritchie playing because he's just another one who has got a bit of leadership on the pitch.
Should be in.
Yeah, if we're not going to have any commanding voice, Lascelles isn't doing that job at the moment. I don't really know what he's doing at the moment. He seems to have fallen out of love with it a little bit when you watch him, but. We need someone, be it Dubravka. I would love to see Dubravka back. I feel sorry for Darlow. I think in most other sides he'd walk in as a first keeper because he's been so solid for us whilst Dubravka's been away. But then on the other hand, he doesn't have that commanding voice like Dubravka has. And if you're not going to have anyone anyone playing who's got that, then he needs to come back, in my opinion, unless you're going to play Matt Ritchie. But for some reason, Steve Bruce doesn't seem to like him at the moment. But yeah, and like going back to Jamal Lewis, I actually feel so sorry for him because he has got so much stick over social media and he's really young. And I think, God, if he actually did read any of that, the damage that could do to his confidence, because when we do play forward going, he's actually looks like quite a decent player. But when we play like we played yesterday, where we sit back, he looks like he's drowning in it. And that's down to how we're being set up. I do feel bad for him. And he's come from Norfolk, and we're all slow here, so he's got to get up to speed. So yeah, I don't know. I'd maybe, it depends how he's playing. If we was going to play forward going, I'd have Jamal Lewis. If we was going to sit back and just defend the life out of it, I'd probably put Paul Dummett in. It just, depends how we turn up.
It does indeed. Lots of comments coming in. It says system's not to blame. We can't afford to carry players like ASM who don't work hard enough. He's talented, but he's idle. Got to agree. Babu, he says, yes, Lascelles has just been coasting through on his performances under Rafa. He's been slow. He's reading the game poorly. He doesn't seem to commit to anything. And he always comes off abruptly. Terrible form.
The fact is, under Rafa as well, Lascelles had Fernandez, who has been our most solid defender for the past 2-3 years now. So he had him next to him. He hasn't got him now. He's either got, the defence has been changing all over the place. So he hasn't got him now. So it's left to him because, Fernandez is, like, in my opinion, probably the best centre-back we've got. And the other one we, let go out on loan because we're such a great club. So, yeah, that's my opinion. I think that's why he's probably good under Rafa. Also, Rafa's coaching tactics, more guidance, more aware of the game. And obviously doesn't have that under Steve Bruce. But he's just a liability to me now, Lascelles, unfortunately. So I personally wouldn't even really mind him going in the summer.
Defending starts at the front door, Holly, for me. And when you've got lazy players up front and a midfield which is held together by a guy who thinks he's better than he is, i.e. Shelvey, who doesn't graft at all and plays with a proverbial chip on his shoulder, then that's where things start to go wrong. Because if you're not defending from the front, it puts your back four under pressure, or your three centre-halves, whatever formation you're playing. And that's ultimately what's happening, isn't it? It's putting Lascelles, who I've always said isn't the greatest centre-half. He's not a bad centre-half. He's just not the greatest. Do you know what I mean? He's got a touch of the tightest brambles about him at times. But, he was always, even when he was playing under Rafa, he was never comfortable with a ball at his feet. He's not a ball-playing centre-half. And I just think he was, there's that gaping hole down the middle. Do you know what I mean? You haven't got the running and creativity of Wilson. You've got Shelvey just who, has one good game in 10. That just leaves you wide open at the back. And if, Alicia's saying we should be putting Dubravka in because he's a more commanding keeper, then the whole spine of your team is weak.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, Wilson is, undoubtedly a huge miss for us. And then bringing in Gale, who hasn't had much experience lately, he has hardly played a game. It's a massive change. And then that's the problem, is we pass the ball back far too much. That's a huge issue, because there's times where we could play it wide or whatever, or down the wing, and we'll literally pass it back so we're in our own half again, and that just causes stress for the defence. The strikers, they're never ever in the box enough for me. And then the midfield, I think, has been a problem throughout the whole season, even when we have got the strongest players in, because they're just always constantly being lazy and not supporting the defence, and just relying on the back four or back five too much. So they're under so much pressure. And then now, obviously, we've got a weakened defence, which adds even more stress. And for me, I completely agree with what Alicia was saying in bringing Dubravka back in, because for me, I feel so much more confident when he is in goal over Darlow, because I do rate Darlow, he's an excellent number 2, but just sometimes he's very, very shaky, and Dubravka always seems to be a lot more calm and collected.
Yeah, interesting. It's a debate I'm sure we'll have over the next couple of weeks. He might make the decision. Let's see what he does against Man United. If there's a game to make it, it is probably that one. The one thing that came up yesterday on the Matchday Live was the talk of Sturridge. We've talked about him before. Obviously it's a freebie. We'd only have to pay his wages. Is it something that attracts you, Kendall, bringing Daniel Sturridge in? He's not been the most reliable. I think somebody made the point yesterday on the chat that why would we take a player who turned us down for West Brom last time?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like we're kind of doing him a favour because he hasn't currently got a club. But then again, knowing the type of player that he is, it's going to be like a Danny Welbeck sort of situation where he went to Brighton and he kind of looked like he was actually picking back up a little bit of form again. I mean, that could happen, but it's just taking a risk. I don't know why we've got to just have other people's cast-offs and free agents and stuff. Why can't we actually go out and get... There was 1 million free agents in the summer. Look, Rondon's just gone to another club. Like, do you know what I mean? There was 1 million other free agents in January, sorry, not the summer, that we could have had. Why are we looking now for cast-offs that haven't got a club, so clearly no one cares about them? Why do we have to be like the nursing home for cast-offs? Like, why can't we just go and out and actually, like we did with Wilson, go and get someone decent? It doesn't have to be 20 million. As I've said, Rondon's just gone to another club for free. So why was that a problem? Like, why couldn't we do that? I think the whole Rondon situation, like the Willems situation, things like that. Obviously Willems wasn't a Rafa player, but or was he a Rafa player? No. No, he wasn't. He came on Steve Bruce's first season. Anyways, the whole Rondon situation, I think that's like Steve Bruce didn't want to go for like Rafa players, if you know what I mean. I think that's why he probably didn't go in for Rondon. Also, I think his wages went heightened a little bit when he moved. So, I mean,
it depends who signs the players, Kendall, I suppose. I mean,
well, yeah.
We live, I think the way we talk about it sometimes, we think Steve Bruce sits with his list and goes to Lee Charnley when, in fact, it's Steve Nixon and co who go to Lee Charnley.
Who isn't.
And Bruce just says, yeah, this is the player I always wanted, when in fact he didn't know who on earth he was.
Well, I remember Van Gaal did an interview a few years ago and he said like he nearly quit Man United before he even started managing for the first game because every player he wanted to sign, they were signing his like the third choice on the scouting list, which is probably what happens, to be fair. But I don't, the whole Daniel Sturridge thing, I don't know why we, as I said, why we have to go for and do other players a favour. Like, we need someone who is going to come in, make a difference, work hard. Like, other people have said, we don't need like another St. Maximin, like whose head goes down if he doesn't have a good first 20 minutes. Like, we need someone who is going to come in, who wants to make a difference. Maybe Daniel Sturridge could do the job. Maybe he wants to, make a good thing in his career again. Maybe he will work hard to do that. I don't know, but it's just a risk. I'd just rather have someone. Like, we should have gone in for Josh King as well. There was another person we could have had who's now gone.
I would have took Madja.
Yeah.
I would have took him when he left the Mackhams, to be honest. When he went to Bordeaux, I would have took him then because the kid's got talent and he can score goals and he looked like Tammy Abrahams.
Yeah, he was going for fun at Sunderland as well when he was there before. So yeah, I would have had him as well. 100% agree.
Yeah. What about you, Alicia? I mean, Sturridge, it's a possibility. He's there. He's got to want to come, of course. But, who wouldn't want to come to, if he's going to go where the money goes, he gives me that kind of impression. He's a money grabber.
Yeah, so he won't be coming to Newcastle then.
No, definitely not.
But at the end of the day, if we go back to the Rafa quote, and I don't like quoting Rafa often because I try to leave it in the past, he's talked about Newcastle being a stepping stone. If we sign Sturridge, we become that stepping stone again. Because all he'll do is score a few goals and then we'll let him go in the summer and we'll sell him on. Because why should we be taken off casts again? He's obviously not been good enough, as he won't be a free agent at his age. He should have been in the Premier League years ago consistently, and he wasn't good enough then. He was always injured. We've got enough injuries as it is than buying another injury-prone player. I think we've just got to work out what we need, how this team is going to work out. I don't think we can rely on trying to get Daniel Sturridge in. At the end of the day, somebody would have to come out of the squad as well because the 25-man squad's full. So I don't know who would go back out. Would Atsu be cast back out again for Sturridge to come in? I don't know why Atsu's not getting the chance actually on that one. We need more creativity. I don't know why he's not getting a chance, but I wouldn't take Sturridge. No offense to him, but I don't think he's good enough.
No, I mean, you make that point, Alicia, and you're quite right. You know, there would have to be someone come out, but I wouldn't put it past Steve Bruce to do something like that. You know, and you just don't know. But I think there must be some kind of special dispensation for somebody who's on there. You know, somebody who's free, somebody who's unsigned. I don't know, but yeah, I mean, it's been talked about in the media, so it must be a possibility. Sav, I mean, you know, would you give Atsu a chance? I mean, would you bring him back into the squad if you were allowed to?
No, probably not. That sounds really rude. But
you're being
no,
honest.
I think the problem,
that's all it is.
The problem is we have so much dead wood in our squad. We need to ship people on, but no one wants them, and that's half the issue. And you know, if we're going to go after Sturridge, why didn't we do more in the January transfer window? That's what confuses me. When there was actually some quite good players flying about, go out on loan or anything like that. We just didn't make that move. We just waited until the last minute and got Willokin, who has been really good in on loan. But I think players like Atsu and, so many in our squad, we need like an overhaul. I just think if you've got Sturridge as well, you're just adding to those numbers. And like, as you said, he's injury prone. So we don't need any more of that. We've got enough of that going on. I think our players need like proper training. That's more the problem. And like a new manager, maybe.
Yeah, well, we can hope. Yeah, Holly, I mean, if there's a free agent out there we could bring in, the likes of Sturridge, is that something you would like to see? Or do you just think, what we've got, we're going to have to get on with?
Not for me, no. I think we'll just keep what we've got because, like everyone said, he's really injury prone. And I think it would just be like another Danny Rose type of signing where he comes in, you think, oh, he might do a decent job, and then it's just disappointing. And whenever he does play, he certainly doesn't add anything to the team. So I just feel like it'd be a massive waste of a signing. And to be honest, even if he did come in and do well, I don't think it would be what we needed or enough to sort out the issues that we have. So, I would just stick with what we have got, but I wouldn't bring Atsu back into the squad because I know you touched on that earlier. Not for me. I'd rather keep him out, but best of luck to him.
Yes, best of luck to him. Dodo Bird says it wasn't long ago our defence was our strength, seems to have disappeared, and now it's a big worry. I've got to say as well, Dodo Bird, thank you very much for posting that present to us. I got it today. He sent me something over in the post, which I'll probably show it on the Retro Show. I think it fits in quite nicely on there, but thank you very much for that, mate. Much appreciated, and just to let you know, it did arrive, and it is much appreciated. GV Game says, team is full of fast players on the wings, so you need someone in mid or defence that can hit an accurate long pass, counter-attacking or using players that are like Usain Bolt when it comes to running. Alan Thompson says, Shelby and Hayden are too slow. They have just got up the pitch at Stamford Bridge. Do they not realise we have a game on Sunday? Looney Tune Daz as well says, Darlow is making sure his sleeves are nice and neat before he's trying to make a save. I've noticed that. But, he's done well. I don't want to criticise the poor lad. He's he's done his best in bad circumstances, and he's been one of the best keepers in the Premier League. But a lot of people saying agreeing with what Alicia said, Dubravka should come back in. He's more vocal, interesting. And Adam Telford and Martin Heron both saying the same thing. Can we bring him in? We've already got our 25-man squad. But Martin Heron says, will Sturridge be classed as a loan because we've got a 25-man squad? Yeah, probably. That could be the situation. Alan also says, I throw the cat out in rage when I saw Joe Linton come on. I'm still raging about last night. Yeah, it was a really strange situation. So, I mean, I've said this for the last couple of weeks, Kendall. I do feel we are in a relegation position. We're in a relegation fight. That's where we are now. Are we capable of getting out of this, Kendall, or are we going to be relying on other teams doing us a favour? I mean, it's a big week coming up. Fulham have got a game in hand on Wednesday against Burnley, two informed teams. But if Fulham win that, and then they win the game before we play on Sunday, they're a point behind us. Yeah.
Which is exactly what I knew was going to happen. I said, as soon as Steve Bruce said, well, we're not in a relegation battle, he's just jinxed it. Completely jinxed us, because now we are. And anyone who thinks that we're not is lying, because we've got Man United, Wolves, West Brom, Aston Villa in the next like 4 games. So it's like, where apart from maybe possibly West Brom, who, I mean, I wouldn't even be confident against them at this point, where are we going to get points from there? And then Fulham's already got another game, as you say, their game in hand. I'm just going to have a check and see who their game is after that, because I'm sure like Sheffield United. Great. Well, that's just fantastic. There's possibly 6 points they could have straight away, and we're not going to get anything from the next 2 games. So yeah, I do think we're in a relegation battle, and I don't think that right now, the way that we're playing, the way the players are playing, the injuries we've got, the manager mentality, the morale around the club, around the the squad in general, I don't think we have the mentality, not the ability, because I think we do have the ability. I just don't think we have the mentality to get out of that situation, because we know so well, too well almost, how bad and hard it is to get out of the relegation zone once you're in it, and once you're in it by a long chalk. So yeah, I do think we're in a relegation battle. That's exactly what I didn't want. If someone says to me today, will you take 17th just to get the season over and done with, I'll take it all day long. All day long, I'll take 17th. I just don't want it to leave to the last game of the season when we play Fulham, of all people, and leave it to the last game of the season to go down again. My literal mentality for football, I just will not take it. It's just going to be awful, and just something that I don't think the squad of players that we have right now should be in that position at all. We've shown what we can do against certain teams, so I don't think we have. I think we have the ability. I just don't think we have the mentality or the technicality in terms of, coaching, managerial stuff to get out of it if we get dragged in.
Sean Smith said he would have took Josh Madger as well. He's also said Ahmed Musa on a free if he could. I mean, that's another one, Kendall. I mean, it's a lot of it's paper talk. I should be too long in the tooth really for getting carried away with paper talk. But yeah, I mean, look, we've had options, haven't we? And we've not taken them. And I'm still amazed and delighted that we got Callum Wilson. I still think that was a steal at 20 million, like.
Absolute steal. I mean, as I was on a show a couple of weeks back with an Aston Villa fan, and we were talking about the similarities between the Steve Bruce reign and both clubs, and he said the only positive about Steve Bruce that he can possibly take from his time at Aston Villa, which I resonated with so much, was the signings he makes are always pretty decent. He normally signs players that fit into certain positions that you need, good quality players. I mean, look, the Joe Linton was an anomaly. So let's just ignore that one. But the rest, like Jamal Lewis, for example, we'd needed a left back for a long time. Callum Wilson, we needed a striker for a long time. St. Maximin, who we, like a flair player. So we did sign players that we needed. It's just obviously the coaching has knocked that on its head a little bit, because until Graham Jones has come in, we haven't really had that decent caliber of coaching to coach these type of players. But yeah, there was a millions of other strikers we could have had. I mean, millions is exaggerating, but there was several other strikers we could have had. Like we mentioned Josh King earlier, Josh Madger, and another one. There's several other strikers that we could have had. Even I know Ollie Watkins was like a bit more expensive than Callum Wilson, but there's another one that you could have had who was now lighting it up for Aston Villa. So it's just like there's loads of other people we could have had and haven't gone for it. We always just look for other people's cast off. So
we did have Armstrong and Tony, of course, who are both banging the goals in the Championship.
Yeah, and would you look at that? It's no surprise, is it, that you'd leave the club and end up being, decent. I also thought Adam Armstrong was decent. Ivan Toney was different. I didn't see him much for Newcastle, I must admit. So I didn't really have a judgment on him. But Adam Armstrong, I always thought was decent, and I thought he deserved a bit more of a chance at the time. But obviously didn't get it, and now look at him. So yeah, madness that the two top scorers of the Championship are ex-players of ours when we could really desperately do some goals right now. It's just sod's law, isn't it?
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. Chris McCarthy, you're asking a question that a lot of people have asked. Evening, Steve. Looking at Fulham, Sheffield United, West Brom, all looking better than us. Would the Takeover have any chance with relegation? What's your honest opinion? Chris, you know what? My honest opinion, and this isn't based on speaking to anybody, is if we go down, the Takeover's done. A lot of people think the Takeover's done already. I think some people thought I was being Negative. I got a message off Keith from NCSL yesterday saying people are reading into what you're saying, and they felt you were being a little less positive on the takeover. I'm still positive. I'm still 100% positive it'll go through. However, why on earth would anybody, never mind PIF, the Rubens and PCP, why would anybody pay £350 million for a football club which is in the Championship? Nobody would. So the only way a deal will go through if we get relegated, I believe, and this isn't based on speaking to anybody, this is my opinion, is if the deal is renegotiated. And then it's down to one person and one person only, and that's Mike Ashley. Will Mike Ashley take a lower price? It depends where he's at financially. We know from previous statements that his money's all tied up in wallpaper. He doesn't actually have physical cash. It's all, it's in the bank. It's in assets. So who knows? Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Let's hope the takeover goes through before the end of the season. My feeling is with Newcastle being, dragged into a relegation battle that I've got to be honest, if I was buying the club, there's no way in the world I'd be trying to push it through until I know what division they're in. That's my honest... Chris, you asked us for an honest opinion. I've given you one. And it's probably because I'm on my second glass of Prosecco. Yes, it's got strawberries in. Alicia, it's one of those things, isn't it? Well, let's talk about that. We've got about 15 minutes left. Do you think a takeover will go through, or am I just making an off the cuff answer to Chris there? I mean, what do you think? Do you think it'll go through for 350 million if we drop into the Championship?
I want to be positive, but for 350 million pound, 100% not. Like, why would you pay the same price as what you were going to pay for a Premier League team when you get more money through Premier League TV deals and things like that? You're bound to get more money back. In the Championship, you're not going to get the same money back than what you would. So obviously that would have to be renegotiated. You could look at it from the stance of the way the Premier League's messed about. Could there be a chance that the EFL would let it go through? People that were rumoured to be involved before PIF came in got their takeover with Derby in the Championship. Yes, it's all fell apart now, but could it be a chance that it could kind of turn on its head and actually go in our favour? Of course, I don't want to get relegated for that reason that the takeover would go through, because you can never guarantee that. You could never put anything on that being guaranteed. In terms of the chance of us going down, I completely agree with Kendall. I don't think the mentality is there for us. I don't see anybody standing up to be counted at the minute. As I said before, Lascelles, the season that we went down, he actually stood up for the team, and nobody's standing up, and I don't get it. I think, is it like delusion of they don't realise where they are? Is it because Steve Bruce brings out these positives all the time that in the head they're thinking, oh, right, we'll be fine because we're finding positives in things all the time? The realistic bit of it is, by the next time we play, we're going to be 1 point off relegation. And I don't think the players realise that. Like, it's 2 winnable games for Fulham. Burnley, Sheffield United. And we don't have the easiest running after that either, considering we've got Wolves, Man United,
Man City.
Third
last game of the season.
I think it'll go down the wire, being completely honest. I don't think we will get the chance to pull away from it. I think we're in this for the long haul, and I think the players, the manager, the coach and staff need to wake up and realise this. And I think Mike Ashley needs to realise this. If he wants to protect the asset that he has in Newcastle and he wants to get this takeover done, have a look at your team and see what's happening to it, and don't be blind to it like what you were with Steve McLaren, because this is how I feel it's going. I feel it's got Steve McLaren written all over it, and we're going to do something with about 8 games to go when it's too late.
It's clearly down to money. Any decision Mike Ashley makes is down to money. And if you're talking about sacking Steve Bruce, it's down to one thing: it's money. And people say that he's not on great wages. I've got no idea what he's on, but guaranteed it's going to cost a fortune if he's on a poor weekly wage, monthly wage, whatever he gets paid. It'll guarantee that it'll be a clause in his contract where he gets paid a fortune, and it'll be him. You've got to get rid of him. You've got to get rid of Agnew. You got to get rid of everybody. Do you know what I mean? And that's where the money is. And Mike Ashley won't want to spend the money, because you've got to remember the deal's been done. The deal is done. The handshake's done. The deposit's paid. PIF have pulled out. but they're ready to come back in. I think that's where the problem is. I genuinely don't see him wanting to spend any more money, and that's why there was no money spent in the transfer window, really, at all. But I mean, it's as Rob S says, negativity and stagnation comes from the top. When Ashley goes, this club will shoot up the table quicker than a bullet from a gun. The problem is, Rob, which division will we be in? And Sav, that's my worry. I mean, we'll laugh about it, but and we've laughed at Sunderland for season after season, struggling to get out of that division. But I think we can all hand on heart say that we aren't much better. And if Newcastle do drop into the Championship, there's no guarantees that we'll bounce straight back like we did under Houghton and like we did under Rafa. In fact, there's a good chance we could go the other way, and we could well be laughing on the other side of our face. We could be playing Sunderland. Might get them derbies back by the time fans are allowed back in the ground, but it could be in the second division. Yeah,
it's actually really worrying, and at night it seems like, well, as you say, it's difficult to move Steve Bruce on at the moment. And to be fair, when Graham Jones came in and we had that sort of, run of where we played quite well, I was thinking, do you know what? If Steve Bruce just stands there as the puppet on the side and Graham Jones just manages everything else, behind him or on the side of the pitch, that's fine. I'll be all right with that for a little while. But there seemed to be, like yesterday, a regression. And if we come back out, we've got Man United. I just can't see us getting anything from Man United at all. I think in actual fact, they may just completely thrash us. And our players, they just look dejected and miserable all the time. There's absolutely no driving them. So we've got Bob Hope against, sides like Man United, really, because there's absolutely no belief in them. But why is there no belief in them? There's got to be a problem going on somewhere, because, it's just how they always look. They just look like they've lost when we turn up. We've had those couple of 3 good games where we played well, but then we've gone back again. And I just can't see us turning up on Sunday looking like that team that we were, last week. I just can't see it. I feel like we've just regressed. And yeah, as you say, it is worrying, and it seems balmy to me nothing is being done. We're just sort of stagnant, and we're made to accept it. And I think that's where the negativity through the fans sort of comes through. And because I sometimes feel like all I do is whinge on. But where are the positives? I said to Sam, ladies' night, I want you to find one positive a week. I think she did 1 week and then was like, no, I can't find anything. I give up. So, yeah, there's no positives. So if someone gives me a positive, I'm happy to accept it. I just can't find one. It's just all doom and gloom at the moment. And it's such a worry of the relegation battle and, how that would affect, like you said, it would have to be renegotiated. But would they want to renegotiate it? And would Mike Ashley want to take a lower price? Because we all know he likes his little pot of money and he likes to, keep hold of that. And I think he would want maximum out of the club. But then the way he's going on with the way the club's being run at the moment, he's not going to get that.
No, he's definitely not. A lot of people ask him where Katie is. Katie's having a bit of time off, and it's well deserved. She's okay. She's in touch with me. She's in touch with Sav, and she's in touch with Kendall. So she is okay. We'll pass on all your best wishes. She will be back, but everything's okay. She's just having a bit of time off from everything, and that's with our best wishes. I hope she's okay, and I know she'll continue to watch the shows. We love her lots, and I hope she is all right. And Sam, I think she's just making pancakes, because it is Shrove Tuesday today. I had my pancakes last night. I've been a right pig. I'm going to have to do 20 miles tomorrow, not 10 miles. Holly, I mean, look, we've got 5 minutes left. Let's turn our attentions to Man United at the weekend. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer says he's not settling for second place, so they're quite clearly not going to sit back. We're coming into players in form. Pogba's suddenly picked up because he's got 2 players who know what they're doing up front, in Fernandes and Cavani. I think Newcastle's back 4 and whoever's in goal is going to be quite busy at the weekend. I can't see anything other than a defeat. Do you see anything different?
No, and I don't think it'll just be a defeat. I think it'll be an absolute thrashing. Like, I predicted...
If they've got the white socks on, it'll definitely be alright. Those bloody white socks at Old Trafford.
Yeah, I predicted a 3-0 at best. That's honestly how I feel. Like, I haven't watched a great deal of Man United this season, but from the bits that I have seen, they look absolutely outstanding. And obviously they could go on to win the league, and they just look a class above at the minute. So even if we were in good form, I still think that we wouldn't win against them. But now that we are looking very, very poor, I think it'll be nothing short of an absolute hiding from them, unfortunately. I'm not looking forward to watching it whatsoever.
Yeah, I know. You haven't cheered us up. I mean, what do you think we can do? Is there anything we can do? Who would you like to see start up front?
Well, going into the Chelsea game, I said that Gale would be my first choice, but after seeing him in that game, I probably think about bringing Andy Carroll on. I don't think he could play the full game, but then maybe like even if we're playing for the first half and then bring Gale on after that. Like, I wouldn't put Joe Linton anywhere near it, obviously. I'm not sure many people would. But yeah, and Carroll, I know he's not the greatest, but he's one of the only players for me that always puts in 100% effort. And he's the one that, like, one of the few players that I feel like would be willing to put in a shift to try and help us to stay up, because there's a lot of players there that just seem to not care, and he's one of the few that does. So I'd probably give him a run out.
Okay, thanks, Holly. Kendall, your take on the game coming up at Old Trafford. Not a happy hunting ground either. It's a damage limitation exercise for me, I think.
Yeah, we need Matty Longstaff in. He likes a little cheeky goal against Man United, doesn't he? So get him in.
Get him in to get the consolation, yeah.
But no, I mean, I kind of understand Carroll playing in a sense, because obviously he offers us a lot defensively, and I feel it's obviously going to go the same way as the Chelsea game in terms of sitting back defensively. So I kind of do see the Carroll thing. Me personally, I don't. If we're going to stick with the 4-3-3, I don't see why we couldn't maybe play Almiron in the middle, Maxman and Fraser as the front three. I don't see why that wouldn't work. If you want to kind of, because I don't rate Lindelof one slight bit. I don't even rate Harry Maguire, really.
Nah, so
I feel like if we're gonna go into that game, weirdly, because obviously attacking, we don't really play attacking football. We have the past couple of games, but obviously as we saw yesterday, we just go back to defensive. So I don't see why that couldn't be a viable option. Defensive wise, because that's where I would attack Man United if that was me. I would try and always be on the front foot. Playing Carroll does offer you that defensive option. I probably wouldn't even play Gale. Really, I would maybe just, again, it's not really his fault. He's come back after not playing for several months consistently. He's come back against Chelsea where you're not really going to get much. You're not expected to get much. So I do feel for him in that sense. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe I would probably leave Carroll till the second half, if that was going to be a thing. But I just don't know what's going to happen. I really don't know where their heads are going to be at this point. And we could have had Fernandes under Rafa for 27 million. Imagine that. Imagine where we'd be now if we had him. It just makes you more depressed, doesn't it?
We could have had Tammy Abrahams. I was part, as you know, I worked with Rafa. We could have had Chris Wood, not everyone's favourite, but another guy who scores goals in the Premier League. The reason we didn't get Chris Wood is because Mike Ashley wouldn't speak to Rafa about the Mitrovic deal. So we didn't know, Rafa didn't know what was going on with Mitrovic. And that is so frustrating. So Chris Wood would have come to Newcastle instead of Burnley, but Rafa didn't want to make the deal because he could have been embarrassed. He might not have had the money to spend because they couldn't be guaranteed that they were going to get rid of Mitrovic. I mean, it's just, what kind of world, does Mike Ashley live in with his football club? That it's a world where... He's lived in it
the whole time, though. He's always done this to us. He's always, stabbed us in the back, considering he owns the club. So how come you try to sabotage your own club and your own employee who is trying to build the club, who's trying to coach the team? Why would you go out of your way to sabotage it? We've said this several times past. Look, the whole Yedlin thing. Yes, that might not be down directly to Mike Ashley, but how can you let a player at your club, well, technically an employee at your club, how can you let his work permit run out? And then when you've only got two real right back covers, just let him go. It's it just makes no sense, the things that go on. Newcastle United under Mike Ashley makes no sense to me. It's just bizarre, absolutely bizarre. That's why we want to get rid of him. It's just craziness.
No, it is. Bob Curry says, thanks, Steve and the ladies, for a good show. Pity the team hadn't the enthusiasm that you lasses have. Bob, I used to go to the gym with Bob. Great guy. Lovely to catch up with you on social media today. Adam Telford's laughing at Chris Wood. I know, Adam, but it's better than Andy Carroll. It's better than Joe Linton. And we could have got him for half the price of Joe Linton. Instead, had £20 million to spend on somebody else, mate. So I'm not being funny. You can laugh all you want at Chris Wood, but he scores goals. Joe Linton doesn't score goals. Andy Carroll doesn't score goals. The only thing those two are good for is putting nets up. Alicia, from your perspective, Man United, anything that we can get from that, do you think? Or will we just be watching Steve Bruce come out after a 3 or 4-0 hump and like Holly seems to think we're going to have, and saying, well, I saw some positives in that, you know.
Hey, if we come away with a 3 or 4-0, we're lucky. I'm just saying, they've just battered Southampton 9-0 the other week.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, play like a 10 at the back, might get away with one. But I'm not looking forward to this in the slightest. I hate getting beat by Man United. It just infuriates me, and I know I'm going to be wound up anyway. But I am just not looking forward to this one. I don't think we'll even get a goal, being honest. I just cannot see, as we said before, where they're going to come from. And Man United are in form. Ollie's obviously set his sights on the league, however difficult it may be. He set himself up for the challenge. Nice challenge to have. Hopefully we might have it one day, but I think our goal difference is going to take a battering this week. I think it could be a bad week for us this week. Unfortunately, sorry.
That is the big worry. There's no need to apologise. Kendall, I want to just get your channel as well. Just give your channel a plug.
Oh yeah, it's just Kendall Rowan. If you're typing it in on YouTube, I'll come up somewhere on there.
Alicia, where can people find yours?
Yeah, just the same. It's just Alicia FC on YouTube, and then it'll come straight up.
Okay, Sab, we'll come to you for your Manchester United prediction and your thoughts on that game. What can we do? Should he maybe rest a few players and maybe put a few of the young'uns in and concentrate more on that West Brom game? What's your thoughts?
Do you know, it's so easy to say, yeah, he should rest a few and play some of the young ones. But realistically, he's not going to do that. He'll probably just put on the same side that we've just played against Chelsea, knowing Steve Bruce, because it's just so predictable all the time. I personally would put Andy Carroll in over Dwight Gale just because, defensively he offers more. And I think we're going to be defending an awful lot in that game. I can't see us scoring a goal. I don't know who well, maybe Almiron might be able to nick one, but not against Man United. I don't think there's a hope in hell. I'm actually really angry about this one. I feel like I've got to go into my delusional phase because there's a guy in my town and he's like a 90s plastic Man United fan and he makes me so angry. Like, literally, I just see him standing there all dressed up in red and I'm just like, just go away. Don't even come near me. So whenever they lose, I'm always like secretly happy because I'm like, oh, I bet he's crying and stuff like that. So like, I really want us to do something and we're not. And I'm quite glad we're not really allowed out at the moment so I won't see him. So that's quite good. And I know I've really deviated there, but that's me on a personal level. I'd love to see us get something. I can't see it, but I'm going to go into my delusional phase, put on my obligatory £3 on William Hill that we're going to win, and then just hope for the best. I think that's all we can do.
God, well, don't forget, he doesn't really do tactics. I did like that yesterday, by the way. And this guy definitely does. Let's hope Graham Jones can get the team together and get things sorted out.
It's Brucey's stomping ground, though. He's going to obviously give the win to them, isn't he? He's going to say, there you go, there's 3 points, get you towards the league. Ollie with these little mates and that. Wouldn't be surprised wouldn't be surprised if he just starts random players. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Atsu. Stick Atsu up front, Steve Bruce. I'm sure that'll get you little Man United 3 points.
Well, let's face it, Steve Bruce loves a Man U win against Newcastle. I think you're right, girls. I think we're looking at 3-4, maybe it's even 5-0. So, and we have had some of the lads tonight are saying, why don't the girls come on Match Day Live? Well, Alicia does her own on her channel. Kendall goes around and does quite a few shows, which you can catch her on. But you never know, Holly, Sav, if you're doing anything and you want to sit through with some of the lads, give a female perspective on the match. I'll send you the link. It might be nice to get one of you.
Not much room normally. You normally have a full house.
Well,
on
this is it. We're getting
on.
overloaded, and it's because Daz has taken over the organisation a bit, you know. So I'll have a word with Daz, and we'll see. I think Holly's pretty much up for it. She's had her bedroom done and everything.
I have issues because I watch it on the Sky Go, so there's a delay, and I think I did one match day live, and everyone was celebrating, and I was like sat there completely gormless, like what on earth is going on?
That's because you're an Arsenal fan, man.
Oh, stop it.
My problem is Granda Kenny just shouts in the background, so I just have to
he's
be
a
on
legend. That's right. I remember when you had him on and he came on and just did that one little thing. That was brilliant, man. Absolutely brilliant.
We'll try and get words.
Holly, if you're up for it, we'll try and get you on.
Yeah, definitely. Just give us a message.
It'll be good to get you on, and fantastic. But listen, thanks to everybody in the chat. We've gone into extra time, but that's because we've had a good night as always. So really good to have the girls on, and look forward to getting these on next week. Don't forget, I'm back tomorrow night with Liam tomorrow night. Barry Hogan, you're asking when the 5-minute rant is. We're not doing it this week. We'd like to try and keep it on a Monday. You'll have plenty to rant about if we get whopped off Man United. So Monday night, keep your pent up frustrations for Monday night. Don't forget Loaded Football, which is the one which is about any football from around the world, is back at 9 o'clock tomorrow night with Daz and the gang. And then Thursday night I'm back with Supermac and with Gibbo, and then Friday night we're back with the Three Amigos. And anyone who likes the music that they have at the start of the show, the Long Sands, the lads are coming on at the weekend. I'm going to do a special with them. We're going to go through a few of their videos, have a chat with the lads, and you'll be able to see the people who created the music. Good friends of mine, the band that I used to manage. And will there be a comeback? You never know. Okay, girls, take care. Have a good night. I'm going off to have my next glass of Prosecco. Take care.
Yes,
Bye.
enjoy your birthday. Bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back